Afternoon, it's James from GPX. I just thought I'd take this opportunity to show you around my TSE 300 after its second race over in Liphook at the Kingston Motorcycle Club Enduro over at Iron Hill in Liphook. It was a real muddy event, seriously muddy. I mean, I think I was about the only person who didn't have a change of clothes there to drive home, but luckily it was only a couple of miles, so it's no biggie. But it was a real wet, slippery event, very difficult, and a lot of people had bother really. A lot of people were slipping and sliding, high retirement rate, but hey. So here's the bike. Literally, I've just wheeled it out from the van, and I thought I'd just take an opportunity to show you around it. It performed absolutely brilliantly. Just didn't miss a beat all day. Started immediately on the button, as it does every single time, and just ran perfectly all day. And as you can see, this is a real sloppy, muddy event. Really sloppy and muddy. But you know what I've noticed with this bike, I mean, the event today was very muddy, and it was a 9-mile lap, and about 1/3 of the actual course was, you can see the bike still smoking. 1/3 of the actual course was verging on extreme enduro, and that's one of the reasons why there was a high dropout and retirement rate on this event, because it was too hard for most people. You had to be line perfect. There were ruts there that would just take your bike down, you know, up to here, and that's it, you were stuck, and you'd need, you know, a crowd of people to sort of pull your bike out. So you had to be line perfect, and a lot of people weren't, and maybe you know, just make a simple mistake and they're offline and they're down the hole, and they've had enough. But you know, I learned today that you know, this bike performs really well in really snotty conditions, which is exactly what today was. Really snotty conditions. The clutch was absolutely perfect. It was one finger. I don't think I didn't touch that clutch with more than one finger all day, and the lever feel just didn't change at all. It didn't move in or out. It just stayed consistent. There was no squealing from the clutch, no noise from the clutch, and you know, I was at stationary. You know, when I was on really steep uphills with root steps, you know, where it's dug out beneath the actual root, and if you decide to sort of trickle up there at slow speed, there's no chance you'll get up there. So, and a first gear sometimes is a little bit low for those, and also you don't get the traction sometimes in first. So, you know, I was in second gear, and you know, creeping up there quite slowly, well, maybe sort of 5 miles an hour, and then faced with the step, I'd sort of really open it up and then just dump the clutch, and the thing would just shoot forward. And the clutch is just amazing. It's just absolutely brilliant. So I'm really impressed with the bike. I have to say, you know, having ridden two completely different events on it, one sort of last weekend that's very flowing, and another one today that was completely different, really difficult, snotty, a long time on the bike, just deep ruts, and you're burning your way out of stuff all the time. You know, I'm genuinely think this bike is absolutely incredible. It just grips so well, it lugs so well on the bottom end and mid-range. You know, you just pull high gears everywhere and it's just so smooth, the power. There's no vibration coming up through the bars. You know, it's got that counterbalancer in the engine that just means that everything's just so smooth, and the engine's just so smooth. And that helps with your fatigue. It cuts down on the fatigue. and just makes it more enjoyable to ride, rather than you got this vibrating thing that, you know, vibrates on the frame or down on the foot pegs. There's none of that. You know, this is a really smooth engine, you know, and I really, you know, abused this bike today. I really put it through a lot, as you can see. And it was a tough event, you know, and I'm happy with my placing today in Vet A, which, you know, I was riding as many laps today as Championship. You know, Vet A is a tough class. And, you know, I'm really pleased with it. The bike is absolutely spot on. There isn't one aspect of this bike where I'm actually thinking that's rubbish, or that just needs improvement, or that just needs sorting out. There's not one aspect on this bike where that needs sorting out at all. Changes I made for this week: I put a new front tyre on, and I put a Mitas front tyre on, and that made a significant improvement on the front end grip. The other thing I did was I softened off the actual compression on the front end significantly, and that also helped in a muddy event today finding grip. I had the suspend. I mean, I'm not aching at all like I was last weekend at the end of that, and I'm putting that down to the fact that I had the compression wound up quite a lot on the front suspension. But I don't feel the same this weekend or after today's race, because I just softened it up, and this front suspension is just spot on. It's just amazing. I mean, once again, you know, no leakage from either fork leg, and these are the original fork seals on this bike. This is a very high quality bike, and it really does absolutely everything it should do. It grips so well. It pulls cleanly. There's no gassing up at all. It revs to high heaven. But if you want to lug and pull high gears from stationary third gear, from stationary second gear, you know, you can do. And if you want to just get the front wheel up, or if you want to actually just get the more power down when you're pulling out of a low gear, pulling out of a slow corner in third, then you just, you know, hover your finger over the clutch and dab the clutch. And that gets the revs up immediately and makes a big difference. So I can't speak highly enough about it. What I noticed about this bike, I put these nets over the actual radiator as well, and they help significantly, just keeping the leaves out of the radiator. And I noticed today that the fan only came on twice, which you know, just shows how effective the actual cooling is. These temperature switches here are actually set to actually come on at the same temperature as any other bike, and yet the cooling, the carburation is so good that it keeps the cooling down, you know, of the engine down to such a low level that that the bike's sort of not getting hot. It's not affecting the mixture. It's not needing the fan on all the time. It's not pinking. You know, it's absolutely spot on. There's nothing on this bike that's broken. It's a top quality bike, and it's every bit, you know, that racer that we've all been waiting for at the price that's actually sensible. I mean, for years people have been moaning about the price of bikes, enduro bikes, saying, oh, they've gone up. You know, it's only a few years ago when you could buy I think it was an 18 or a 16 KTM 300 for about 6-7, and now look at them. I mean, you know, they're up around, you know, touching 10 grand. And you know, where did that 3 grand come from in the space of 3 years? What's that all about? What's that all about? I mean, all of these bikes have actually got a set cost to manufacture them. You know, let's not fool ourselves into thinking that you know, this bike is not built to exactly the same quality as KTM and Beta and all the others. This is a high quality bike, but the difference is what you're not getting on this bike, the price just isn't loaded up with race teams, it's not loaded up with huge headquarters, it's not loaded up with hundreds of staff. This bike is not loaded up with a road race team, a MotoGP team. That's the reason why you're paying so much money for other brands. It's because you're paying for the lifestyle of the actual brand and the company, where they're all built for the same cost, and you just got to get your head around that. And this bike here is just the right price for for an enduro bike that essentially you're going to be slithering around in the mud, falling off on, hitting trees with, hopefully at a slow speed, dropping, rolling down hills. I mean, who wants to do that on a 10 grand bike, for Christ's sake? You can do it here on, on a 6 grand bike. I mean, this is every bit as good as a KTM, and every bit as good as a Vita and a Reiju, but it's just a lot less money. Just a lot less money. It does absolutely everything it should do, and it's absolutely superb. There's no negatives I can think on about this bike at all. It's just absolutely superb. What else can I say, really? Yeah, other than saying, we've been all moaning about, the prices, high prices of this. Look at the high prices of that enduro bike. Why are KTM charging so much money? And for years people have been making that argument, saying, the prices are too high. Well, this GPX fills a gap in the market for an affordable and an affordably priced enduro motorcycle that is every bit as good as the other motorcycles. Every bit as good. And you guys, you just need to get your head around that. It's a little bit difficult to sort of accept the fact that you're getting something just as good for less, because we've all been told all our lives that you get what you pay for. But believe me, with this bike and GPX, they defy what we've been told all of our lives by mum. You can get what you pay for, and this and that, whoever might say it. These bikes, you get way more. These are exceptional value, and you're getting every bit the enduro bike than you are with a KTM 300, or with a Gas 300, or with a Husky, or with a Reiju or a Beta. You're getting absolutely everything, but you're getting it for a lot less money. And you'll buy it, and instead of getting £3,000 drop in value as soon as you actually, maybe you've done 6 months in the season or 7 months season, you're not going to see a £3,000 drop in resale value when you come around to selling this. You're going to see a little bit of a drop in value, because that's just logical, isn't it? But you're not going to see 3 grand come off the price. All of a sudden, this bike is not going to be 3,900 or 2,950 for a second-hand GPX 300. It's just not going to happen. The bike's going to come down after a year. Maybe it'll have lost maybe £1,000. I don't know, but it's certainly not going to drop anywhere near as much as you would lose on a KTM. So, there we are. From a financial point of view, it's less outlay. You're losing less on the resale when you come around to selling it again. And you don't have to be quite as guilty about not riding every weekend and having 10 grand's worth of investment or 10 grand's worth of credit sitting in the shed. Anyway, I'm just stating the bleeding obvious to you here, really, because, all of you know that enduro bikes are frighteningly expensive. And suddenly we've got a bike here that is every bit as good as all of those. It's a GPX 300 TSE. I forgot to actually start it at the end of that video, just so you can you hear the engine after its second race. I mean, obviously I've done a lot of green laning on this bike as well, but let me just start this up for you, and you can see how quickly it starts.